Hi friends, welcome back to Laptop Seniors, where we are all things retirement. Today, we are going to talk to you about a question that keeps coming up, or at least a comment about people considering retiring to another country where English is not the first language, and they're fearful about how they're going to pick up another language at this stage of life. It's perhaps not as hard as you think.
We're going to show you a way that we learned Spanish, and pronunciations ended up being like pretty much on the money.
Pretty good.
It was totally fine, and actually we didn't even go that far into the lessons. When we first moved away and went to Uruguay, going into a Spanish country, going to live there, and we'll tell you all about that, and we'll tell you the method about it and how it all works and stuff like that, that you can try it and, wade into it yourself. It's called the Pimsleur method by a guy who was the professor of linguistics at UCLA, and 40 years. He went through tons of research and stuff to come up with really the easy and perfected way of actually learning a language, I think, because we tried a bunch of times, and this one was like, wow, this one we can do.
While language shouldn't be a barrier to consider moving to another country, it's always good to try to assimilate to the country that you're going to.
Yes.
But you don't have to become an expert in the language.
No, definitely. We went to Coronado when we were going across Panama, looking at all the different cities and filming that you would have seen in the videos. We happened to stay in a condo in Coronado, and I'd say a third of the condo was expats. And we got to meet a whole bunch of them. And I would say at least half of all that we met, they had like no Spanish at all, or just a few words, and God, they said the words horribly. It's like they wouldn't even remember. It was super gringo sounding, you know what I mean?
It was very Americano accented.
Yeah. But here's the main point, that they were there for 5, 6, 7 years and had no problem. They were totally fine.
Yeah.
Life was good, and everybody was happy, friendly, loved the surroundings and all that sort of stuff. With the non-existent Spanish pretty much that they had. Although they probably could read more, because that's one of the things that when you're in a place, when we lived in Canada for a long while, after a while, you start to know a ton of words in French, because you pick up a can of beans and there's the English, spin it the other way and there's the French. Just like in the States where, you go and you get English and Spanish on things. Same thing, and you just pick up words. So without even trying, the language sort of comes to you.
And one of the places we really have fun with language is when we're in an Uber or a taxi, because we try to give directions, say where we're going in Spanish, for example, and the driver, again, is always appreciative. Sometimes they laugh at us, but the conversation through the whole ride, we end up picking up new phrases or words because they're happy to help us learn. It's fun.
Probably one of my favorite phrases that I picked up from the course that we're about to tell you about is "Cómo se dice," which is, how do you say that? And so it would be, how do you say, that, throw like an English word out and they probably would know it, and then they give you the Spanish word and you go like, okay, thanks, and then you obviously try to remember it if you can. You just have to ask, and they're like shocked that you would even know that phrase. Like, what? You're a tourist, how do you know that? But it's on this course, it's like early on too, really early.
And something super simple, which probably most of you already know, is that Google Translate on your phone will pretty much instantly tell you any phrase or word that you want to know.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do too, and we'll get into that, because a lot of this will be covered in the, when I kind of explained the actual course and stuff. But one of the things you can do, like if I was going to go get a haircut somewhere, I did this in Mexico, we did it in Uruguay for sure, a bunch of times in other places, you just go to Google Translate and just start putting in words like short, taper, whatever you think you're going to need, and just bring it in with a piece of paper and just point to it, and you're off to the races. So again, I'm sure it seems daunting, because it actually was kind of worrisome for us until we got there and got into it, and it was like, wow, this is not that bad.
Why don't you explain to our folks about Pimsleur and how it works?
So what is the Pimsleur method? Well, it's a really easy way of learning languages because it's normal. It's the way people actually learn a language. And there's three basic points to that. Now, the first one is the big one, okay? It's how you actually learn. So think of a little kid, it's like your grandkids or something like that, okay? Can they read at age 1? No. Maybe at age 4 they might be able to do it, but usually, a typical kid is going to start to learn how to read and write in grade 1, and then they'll be pretty decent at it in grade 2. But when they go into grade 1, or usually even in kindergarten or even pre-kindergarten, they're talking pretty well. Enough that if you were in a different country with a different language, you'd be thrilled to be able to talk like a 3-year-old. And for sure, 4-year-olds have a pretty fair amount of words and can absolutely string sentences together. And here's the big thing. The pronunciation, assuming that the parents in the household who are basically running them through learning a language inadvertently, like by accident, it's happening. Okay, if they're doing pretty good English, or Spanish or whatever the language is, the child is going to be able to pronounce everything exactly like the parent. If they have an accent, the kid will have an accent. If they are doing English and they're in Germany, but they happen to have that British accent, because a lot of schools there will teach, with that British accent, even to adults, the adults will pick up the English accent. And you see that all over the world. A lot of times, it won't sound like you're from the Midwest or something like that. So that's what's going on. The child is just listening and mimicking the sounds of what they hear, and those sounds that they hear are being associated with something else. Red, ball, fridge, milk, those type of things. And then, when they keep hearing sentences, they can mimic the sentence back as they start to understand what's going on and, how to actually speak. That's the Pimsleur method. They take you through that. Virtually nothing is written down, so therefore you never look at a word and start sounding it out. That's where the problems start to happen. Along the way comes a lot of surprises. I had that where, every once in a while, I was kind of wondering what a phrase was or something because I'm hearing it, and I think it's written a particular way, and I'd go look it up every once in a while. One that sticks out is quiero. Which is actually quiero, okay? There's an R in there, but my ear told me it was like a small D, so to me it was quiero, okay? But if you say quiero really fast, it comes out like quiero. It sounds like there's a D. Your ear picks up the pronunciation perfectly and correctly because you don't know any better, basically. You have no frame of reference of anything, it's just what you hear. So a lot of times when you're trying to learn a language and somebody's writing it all down and you're reading it, your mind will go to the word that they remember the way it's written as opposed to the way it actually sounds, and you'll do it in that gringo saying a Spanish word. They'll understand what you're saying, but it'll sound weird as opposed to dead on the money. Number 2 is it's pretty well established that roughly 200 words account for pretty much 70% of all conversations. You're saying one of the 200 words in some way. It's like I want, I need, I would like, drink, food, eat. So there may be 10,000 words in a language, but you only use maybe 200 of them most of the time. So they concentrate on you learning and ramping up with these 200 words. And lastly, number 3, the way they do that is with graduated intervals of introducing the words and then coming back with the words. So, I'll make this up. I've never really counted them out, but it roughly kind of works like this. Say in lesson number 3, they give you 3 new words, okay? So they're going to say them a bunch of times in that lesson, and they're going to make you say them a bunch of times in that lesson, and they're going to make you think about them a bunch of times in that lesson by answering questions. It's super simple, super basic. You would have no problem doing it. So your mind is starting to get familiar with the word. And then probably in lesson 4, the one after that, they'll still have it again, maybe the same amount of times, maybe a little bit less. And then they'll the lesson after that, it's gone. The word won't be there. And then maybe the lesson after that, the word won't be there. And then they'll bring it back because they know that that's about the amount of time that they can go before you'll forget it. So they bring it back before you forget it. They might hit it once or twice, come back again the next lesson once or twice, And then the word's gone maybe for 7, 8, 9 lessons. And then they'll bring it back once because you will be going, oh, I know that word. Oh man, what is it? I remember what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? You're grinding in your brain to try to recall what it was. And then they're going to tell you what it was, on the lesson. And that's, oh yeah, boom. You only need that to happen to you 2 or 3 times max. And the word is locked. It's locked forever. You just don't forget them. So little by little, you keep amassing more palabras, if you're in Spanish, which is words. That's the word for word, and phrases, and then you get to use those when you're actually in a country which is speaking that language.
I bet you'd like to hear a sample of what one of those lessons sounds like.
Yes.
Imagine an American man sitting next to a Spanish-speaking woman. He wants to begin a conversation, so he says,
Perdón.
This, of course, is like the English word pardon. Your objective in this course is to pronounce everything just like the speakers with whom you will be conversing. Now the man is going to say this first word part by part. You are to repeat each part aloud after he says it.
Done. Done. Perdón.
Continue repeating.
Perdón. Perdón.
How do you say, excuse me, in Spanish?
Perdón.
Excuse me, miss. Listen and repeat.
Perdón, señorita.
As always, when we're doing this in particular, this is just our opinion of what we dealt with and how we thought the courses were. Any input from a company or anything like that, we're just doing this because we thought it would be something that you would want to know.
Well, we sure hope that this quelled your fears. Is that a word?
I'm sure it's used in hundreds of languages around the world.
And is it one of the 200 words?
Pretty sure it's not one of the 200 words, no.
Well, we hope this quelled your fears about learning another language and moving to a country where the first language is not English.
As always, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that like button and also the thumbs up and all that good stuff. And we really appreciate that you are with us and hanging for all this stuff about retirement on the channel.
And share this video with a friend if you think someone else might benefit by it.
Someone who speaks English.
Thanks so much for being with us again. Come back and see us again soon. Bye for now.